Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the year where the Champions League draw has just been conducted, and I gotta give you all my predictions for the tournament coming up. Now, as most of you probably know by now, this is a completely different format compared to before. UEFA decided to scrape the group stage phase, so instead for the first phase of the tournament, we'll be seeing a giant league, where each club will be coming up against one another in the standings. In the standings, 1 to 8 qualify for the round of 16 automatically, 9 to 24 go through a separate playoff round, and 25 to 36 are eliminated from the tournament. But not every club will play one another. That would be insane. Instead, in the draw, UEFA have conducted each club's opponents. Each club will play 2 clubs from pot 1, 2 from pot 2, 2 from pot 3, and 2 from pot 4. And every single club will be getting their own unique schedule. So honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of this format, as it's going to be impossible to memorize every single club's fixtures. And also, this prediction video is going to be much messier than the previous seasons. But I'll give it my best go giving you my complete standings from 1 to 36 in this new league phase. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, drop an early like, and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to hit 4,000 likes on this video. Now let's start off the video with all the sides I think will be eliminated from the tournament. Obviously, it will be very hard to determine which side finishes where. There's so many teams we have to cover, but I'm just hoping that in general I get overall each section somewhat correct. Anyway, like I said, going from bottom to top, starting off with last place, I'm going to be giving it to Slovan Bratislava. These guys are Conference League legends. They were in every single Conference League edition since the tournament's creation until now, obviously. They had a decent run in the playoff round, squeezing through against the Danish club Midtjylland with the 4-3 aggregate scoreline. Underrated players here for sure, and they have had some cool runs in the Conference League, but I think the UCL aggression will get to them. They've got very difficult opponents as well. Manchester City, Bayern Munich, AC Milan, Atletico Madrid, Dinamo Zagreb, Celtic, Stuttgart, and Girona. Maybe they can get a win or two against the pot 3 and 4 teams they drew with, but I still think that they will finish overall bottom section or bottom tier of this table. 35th place, I have gone with SK Sturm Graz. The most recent Austrian Bundesliga champions still have not really seen much success in European football recently. Last season, this side were in the Europa League and got demoted to the Conference League after the group stage. They beat Slovan Bratislava, the club we just talked about, in the first round, but then in the round of 16, they got demolished by Lille. To be fair, these guys actually did not get that difficult of a draw compared to some of the other clubs. Their sides from pot 1 and 2 are actually much more generous compared to some of the other clubs they could have faced. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh and they will be further up in the table, but I still think it's safe to put them in this bottom tier. Up next, although I hope I'm wrong on this, at 34th place, I'm going with Crvena Zvezda. You definitely can argue that they were paired up against some more challenging sides. They have to travel to the San Siro twice, but these guys, no matter how well they're doing in their own domestic league, seem to struggle in European football. For example, 2 seasons ago where they finished undefeated in the Serbian league, they finished bottom of the Europa League group. Maybe they have what it takes to surprise one of those pot 1 or 2 teams, but can they keep up the consistency throughout? I think it'll be too tough. They're also going away to Switzerland to face Young Boys, and both these clubs were in the same Champions League group last time, where Young Boys ultimately did better than them. Best of luck, Crvena Zvezda. I always root for the ex-Yugo teams, but I just gotta be realistic here. Would love to see a miracle story though. Don't forget, these guys have won the Champions League in the past, but these are different times. At 33rd place, I am going to be putting the side I just talked about, Young Boys. They actually managed to get the same pot 1 and 2 clubs as Crvena Zvezda, Inter and Barcelona. They're also both coming up against Stuttgart, but they got unlucky to get Aston Villa as one of their pot 4 clubs. I don't want to fully rule out this side. They came up against Galatasaray in the playoffs and beat them over both legs, but I also think Galatasaray are not in their best shape at the moment. An impressive club, don't get me wrong, definitely capable of some upsets, but regardless, at the end, I see them finishing in this bottom tier. 32nd place, I'm going with the Czech club Sparta Praha. Now, talking about a difficult draw, these guys definitely got one from UEFA. Salzburg is definitely a side they can't underestimate either, and Feyenoord we'll get into later, but it will be interesting to see how they build without Arne Slot. You know what, I hate to do this mid-video. I tried to plan this all out before I recorded, but now that I think about it, looking at who they got, I'm going to flop them around with SK Sturm Graz. Sparta Praha, I definitely think got the unluckiest here. Of course, these guys had some fascinating moments in European football recently. We just talked about Galatasaray's downfall against Young Boys in the qualifier playoffs, and Sparta Praha also got the best of Galatasaray in the Europa League last year. But I just gotta simply say they got unlucky with this draw. They'll be dealing with a new manager as well, Las Fries, and I don't know, although he's had some convincing results in those Champions League qualifiers, I think this will be too much for him now that they're in the actual tournament. Moving on to 31st place. Now, this is a club I would not be surprised that would prove me wrong and make it to that playoff spot, but I I'm still going to play it safe and put them in this bottom tier, Celtic. Reason why I wouldn't be surprised is because they have that same draw for those pot 1 and 2 sides as SK Sturm Graz. But then apart from Aston Villa, from those pot 3 and 4 teams, I think they are sides Celtic definitely should feel somewhat confident in that they can grab 3 points. Not going to be easy opponents, of course. We already went over a few. They've just transferred Matt O'Reilly to Brighton for 30 euros. That's a huge loss. But they picked up Adam Ida and even 2 new goalkeepers, Sinisalo from Aston Villa and Kasper Schmeichel on a free transfer. You know what? Celtic definitely have what it takes to be a potential underdog in this competition. But let's not forget what happened in the last Champions League. They had a few matches where they got obliterated. New squad, of course, and this side has every reason to feel some confidence now. Let's see. Like I said, this is a side I would not be surprised proves my predictions wrong. 31st place for me though. At 30th, just above them, I'm putting Brest, a side that definitely punched their weight last season, finishing 3rd in the French league. But so far in this season, they've gone to a very poor start, losing 5-1 to Marseille and then 2-0 to Lens. They've gotten some exciting loanees coming their way, but something tells me this won't be the same Brest team that we have seen last season. Although they've kept their manager Eric Roy, it sucks that I have to keep referring to the schedules, but look who they got to face. Both La Liga giants Real Madrid and Barcelona, a Leverkusen that has not seemed to slow down. I'm thinking they only will be able to pull off results against the likes of potentially Sparta Praha or SK Sturm Graz. Now at 29th, I'm going to be putting my own club, so I truly hope I'm wrong on this, Dinamo Zagreb. Dinamo Zagreb were an absolute mess last season, but at the end they found their way and eventually won the Croatian league, after there were many scares, especially at the beginning of the season. Certain players are definitely looking to be in form going into this season. Piazza has been a wonderful signing, and if Petkovic stays fit, we all know he can be a wild card. We've seen him randomly pull through for the national team, for example. And I do see Dinamo Zagreb making some upsets here. We've seen it before. For example, they win the first match day against Chelsea and still finish bottom of the group by the end. Similar themes here. I think they can get a result against the likes of Slovan Bratislava, maybe Celtic, but Salzburg, Monaco, and those pot 1 and 2 teams are looking too dangerous for them. So yeah, my hopes for Dinamo are not too high. Maybe some will still call me biased for putting them above all these other teams, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because like I said, every team we're talking about in this phase in particular is getting the same result at the end. Now at 28th place, this might be a bit of a surprise, but I'm going to take Bologna. Their manager has left. Now they've got Italiano, who was the manager for Fiorentina and took them to 2 Conference League finals. But this ain't the Conference League no more, and he showed his inconsistencies there. He's great for tournament-style football, but this tournament has changed to a more league-type format. Not only is their key manager gone, so are some key players. Calafiori and Zirkzee have both gone to the Premier League. As good as they were last season, this is a side I do see having somewhat of a downfall and not being able to keep up with Champions League football. Now at 27th, I might go for another surprise, potentially a bigger surprise than Bologna. I'm putting Leipzig, mainly because they got so unlucky in the draw. Liverpool, Inter Milan, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, Sporting, who are very underrated, Celtic I already talked about, Aston Villa, and Sturm Graz. I'm predicting the only 2 sides they could potentially get 3 points against are Celtic and Sturm Graz. Maybe one more upset here or there, but it's going to be tough, especially with some key players gone. Every season they lose some key players, of course, and still have a solid foundation backing them up. I do see them having some impressive displays, but at the end, just crumbling to 27th place. That's going to be my massive upset though, if you want to even call it one. RB Leipzig not being able to make it to the knockout rounds. At 26th place, I'm going for Lille. The biggest news for this side is how they lost Lenny Yoro to Man United, but they've got some cool free transfers including Munier and Mbappe. Not Kylian Ethan, but they will be facing Kylian Mbappe. Looking at their schedule, they're coming up against Real Madrid. Really at the borderline with the rest of the teams. I could see Jonathan David getting on the score sheet quite a bit, but maybe defensively, it will be tough for them against these tough clubs. And the last team I'm having to get knocked out of the Champions League early at this league phase, just under the playoff spot at 25th place, is Club Brugge. Champions of Belgium last season, but on thin ice. They just got rid of 2 massive attackers making loads of profits, selling Igor Thiago to Brentford and Antonio Nusa to Leipzig. But they still have options including Skov Olsen from Denmark and just signed Solis from Greece, who's been exceptional last year. 22 goals and 7 assists in the second Bundesliga last season. The problem is they have a difficult schedule. All of their home matches are no joke, having to face Dortmund, Juventus, Sporting, and Aston Aston Villa. So yeah, here are all the sides I have getting knocked out of the league phase. Would I change any of the orders last minute now? Maybe. I think I shot a bit too high with Club Brugge. I think their schedule is just a bit too tough for me to think that they are a borderline side. You know what? I'm going to swap them with Leipzig first and then probably put Bologna in front of them. So yeah, that's my new order. Again, I'm really sorry I'm changing everything last minute like this, but it's not easy when you got to evaluate so many teams with different schedules. Anyway, regardless, I'm going to lock in these teams to be the ones to get knocked out early. Let me know your list though, like I said in the comments below. Let's move on to the playoff teams. The first club I have advancing just by a stint to the next round is RB Salzburg. Not too long ago, unfortunately, they did prove themselves against Dinamo Zagreb, and Brest and Sparta Praha should be exciting fixtures. Those pot 1 and 2 teams will definitely be a massive challenge, but this side has always been known for the youngsters they produce. They just picked up 2 Liverpool youngsters lacking minutes at their club, Bobby Clark for 11.8 million and Bajcetic on loan. Although they lost some of their big names like Serbian Pavlovic going to Milan and Luka Sucic going to Real Sociedad, this club has kept their foundation and identity throughout this entire time. It's going to be close, but I think they will make it to the playoffs at the end. At 23rd, I'll be selecting Feyenoord. The club is transitioning out of slot, which is definitely going to be a massive shift. Their new managers seem to struggle in the preseason friendlies for the clubs outside of the Netherlands. Of course, though, they're just preseason friendlies, you shouldn't judge too much. And regardless, they're still a great club with so much quality, who have had European wonders recently. But with new management, I think it will take time for them to transition. Having to see Benfica to them after losing to them 5-0, Bayern Munich, Manchester City, and Leverkusen will not be ideal, and I think it can go either way for the rest of the fixtures. Regardless, all up to this side, and I think they have what it takes to make it to a playoff position, with it just being down to the wire a bit more than they're liking. Now for 22nd place, I've gone for Stuttgart. They are losing their top scorer last season, Girassi, who has gone to Dortmund, along with the back line of Ito and Anton Going. They've managed to sign Undorf permanently though, who was crucial for them, and they have got new backline options. And let's not forget that this club did finish over Bayern Munich last season in the Bundesliga, so we cannot take them lightly. I was a bit hesitant to evaluate how they would overcome their long-awaited return to the Champions League, but I think they have what it takes to be a playoff team in the standings. Their pot 1 and 2 teams are not going to be easy, but 3 and 4 look quite doable for them, if we're basing it on their form last year. Maybe I'm putting them a bit too low, as Stuttgart definitely have what it takes to impress in the Champions League. Now one that really could age terribly, although I don't want to discredit them too much. I mean, I'm still putting them in the playoff position. I'm putting Benfica at 21st. Benfica in the last Champions League were extremely underwhelming, but in the one before they cut all of Europe's side, topping their difficult group. They lost some big names, Joao Neves to PSG, Rafa to Besiktas, and Neres to Napoli. But they were not left empty-handed this transfer window, getting loads of interesting signings. My favorite one is the Greek striker Pavlidis, who got numbers in the Eredivisie last season. The problem with Benfica and why I put them lower than I probably should have is because of their difficult draw. I mean, they can definitely handle those top teams on their day, but it begs the question, what Benfica are we really going to get this year? Must-wins are needed against all the pot 3 and 4 teams. A mystery bag for sure. They can either surprise against those giants or crumble, but the repeat against Juventus will definitely be interesting. I'm saying that they pull things off with some slight complications their way, eventually finding a playoff position. Just above them will be one of their opponents, Monaco. They may have lost Fofana, but they have had loads of arrivals. Not an easy job by any means these guys got, but they are capable of producing a few surprises. And I hate to say it, but they should be able to handle the ex-Yugo teams. It seems like the club are on the right track to excel. At 19th place, I'll put the Ukrainian club Shakhtar. This club over the years have produced some serious ballers, and this season I'm expecting big things from Sudakov. They haven't had the brightest start to the Ukrainian league, losing 2 matches so far, including 4-3 to the league leaders at the moment, Alexandria. Despite the shaky start, I think they'll pick up the form by the time the Champions League rolls around. They look prone to leaking some goals, but with all things considered, they got a draw. They should feel comfortable getting 3 points in some of the fixtures. I'm putting one of their opponents right above them, PSV. This club were outstanding in the Eredivisie last season, only losing 1 match while still getting a total of 29 out of 34 wins, so just 4 draws. In the Champions League last year, they just squeezed through to the knockouts with some cagey affairs, and then lost to UCL finalist Dortmund in the round of 16. So although they were dominating in their own home nation, I am still skeptical on how they will perform in the Champions League once they have to face other clubs in Europe once again. Looking at their draw though, I think they should remain confident in each and every one of those fixtures. Nothing looks impossible for a side that are in such hot form right now. Peter Bros at the helm is just the perfect fit for this club. The amount of goals they scored last season was ridiculous. Experienced attackers like De Jong mixed with young energy as well. This side should feel determined and could potentially place much higher than I put them. I'm really curious to see what happens against Girona for them though. For me, I'm putting this club just above them at 17th place. Holding on to first in La Liga for some time was definitely unexpected. A club that brought many new names to spotlight to the football world, with unfortunately a few departures. Their striker Dovbyk went to Roma, Alex Garcia went to Leverkusen, and Savinho to City. But that did not stop the club from making their own advancements. One transfer I think that went somewhat under the radar was them picking up Van de Beek for just 500k. So far in La Liga, they had a horrific start against the strong opposition Atletico Madrid, but they responded wonderfully the next game, scoring 4 past Osasuna. Their draw is very intriguing. To me, they'll definitely beat Slovan Bratislava and SK Sturmgraz, and they have to play the 2 Dutch clubs as well. Those 2 fixtures are really 50-50 and unpredictable, so if all goes well for Girona against those pot 3 and 4 teams, they should be able to secure a playoff spot. And I would not rule out this side against Milan or Arsenal either. At 16th, I've gone for the Europa League champions Atalanta. Not a positive start to the Serie A, but this club is known for being very back and forth with their form. What concerns me for this club though is that they do have a few crucial injuries. Scalvini and Scamacca will both be out for some time. A lot of their other players have left the squad too. One of their strongest assets, Koop Miners, has gone to Juventus for nearly 55 million. Along with Zapata, who's been at the club for some time, he's gone to Torino. A lot of arrivals came in as well though, including experienced players. I think it might take some time for this club to find their footing again, but eventually they will. People assume they got a tough draw since they have to travel to face 2 Spanish giants twice. Those first 3 teams will be quite the nightmare to deal with, but the rest, they have what it takes to get the job done. Next up, I've gone for Aston Villa. They have not been in the Champions League since the 80s. Mixed feelings about them, of course, but there's no denying how impressive they've been under Unai Emery. I'm saying they finished 15th. They lost some key players from last season, Douglas Luiz and Moussa Diaby, but they were not shy this transfer window themselves, getting Ian Matson and Andre Onana their 2 most expensive signings, along with all the other players they have. Ollie Watkins was scoring goals for fun. They were one of those pot 4 teams any club would hate to be drawn with. They'll have to take on Bayern and Leipzig along with a reunion with Douglas Luiz. The other opponents definitely they have what it takes to defeat. Maybe unfamiliarity to the Champions League in some time will get to them, but to be fair, no one's really familiar with the Champions League at the moment as it's a whole new setup. And they did play in European football last season, although obviously not as harsh of a tournament. I'm not sure how highly Aston Villa will prioritize getting results in the Premier League, balancing it out with the UCL, but there's no denying that they are a top club now. I think they will struggle at moments, but at the end, defeat the opponents they're supposed to, on paper at least, and at the end, be happy with a playoff spot. 14th place for me goes to AC Milan. This club are one of the most legendary out there when it comes to history, and although they've had a solid revival the last couple of years, it's still not the same glory Milan. The quality on this team is there, of course, with some interesting additions like Morata, Pavlovic, Fofana, Tammy Abraham on loan, but their poor start to the Serie A so far is a theme I think will be present this season: inconsistency. The way things are going right now, I honestly see the top clubs in their draw getting the best of them, but they should be able to handle their other opponents and cannot underestimate a club like Girona. 14th isn't even bad, but obviously I think this club should strive better and very much compete for the top 8. Now this next prediction might age horribly or could go so well. This will be my somewhat underdog that just missed out of that top 8 spot, Sporting. Besides Manchester City, I think they should be very happy with their draw. No easy opponents, of course, and Arsenal will be challenging, but we've all seen what happened in the Europa League between the two not too long ago. They've also kept their high-profile striker, Gyökeres. He's already gotten 7 direct goal contributions in 3 matches in the Portuguese league, and last season he got 38 in 33 matches. They've just signed the Belgian youngster in the backline, De Bast, but got rid of their experienced center back who's a leader, Coyates. To me, this team will be flying high this year as they only seem to build momentum. And with not the worst draw in the world, for me they'll be higher amongst this league phase, but not all the way up at the top. Now for 12th, I'm seeing some people are predicting this club to flop this season, and although I think they'll struggle at moments, I think overall they'll still keep their high profile and eventually secure somewhat of a top spot in this league phase. I'm going for PSG. To some fans, no Mbappe means the club's in shambles, but in their first 2 Ligue 1 matches, they've already scored 10 goals. They made some upgrades as well, like Joao Neves will be a serious improvement. And although no Mbappe might hinder the attack, they are not short with quality up top. My issue with PSG is that they did get a very difficult pot 1 and 2 draw selection. One of the toughest ones, actually. I think they will potentially drop points there, but will still finish with 14 or 15 at the end. Maybe I'm shooting a bit too high, or maybe everyone's just ruling out this club too quick. It'll be very interesting to see how they do, but I think they'll at least make it to the playoffs. 11th place, Bayer Leverkusen. Of course, they're going into this season with high hopes after building the reputation of Bayern never losing. And although they always seem to find a way, apart from that Europa League final, they've been cutting many matches close. Will it be able to slide in their tough draw? We all saw what happened the last time they came up against an Italian club. Now they'll have to face 2, along with Liverpool and Atletico Madrid. I have the feeling they'll be able to beat at least one of these big clubs, but for them to get points every single time, I don't know. I still think it will be an impressive Champions League campaign, of course. I don't want to doubt the mastermind, Xabi Alonso. 11th place still has potential of a memorable year for European football. Just don't see the infinite success translating here in this top tier competition. And I do think they'll slip a few times. 10th place will be one of their opponents, Inter Milan. I could see these sides drawing against one another. Inter have 2 Premier League clubs they have to face along with 2 Bundesliga teams. But their attacking force is flying high. The partnership of Martinez and Thuram will excel. In fact, Thuram has already been on a roll in the Serie A, scoring loads of goals. Something in my gut for some reason tells me they are the perfect candidate of one of those borderline clubs that fail to succeed and not make the top 8. Despite impressing so much recently, also just winning the Serie A, something just tells me that they will have one unfortunate slip to lead them out of those top spots. The one who I have suffering the most heartbreak though, one of Inter Milan's opponents actually, is Arsenal. 9th place, the best of the playoff teams in this prediction video. Their draw looks doable actually, they should be happy with it. However, I can't help but feel that one of those underdogs will leave Arsenal surprised, having them just miss out of automatic round of 16 qualification. An incredible squad without a doubt, and I think they will be the biggest challengers to win the Premier League title if we're going to be seeing someone new apart from Manchester City. Arteta is doing wonders and motivating this side beautifully. But something just tells me that the final day will leave the Gunners on their toes. Excited to see what Marino and Calafiori bring to the squad. Even Raheem Sterling was their most recent deadline day signing on loan. Talk about loyalty. I don't know, just my prediction that Arsenal will suffer some form of heartbreak in the Champions League. But moving on out to the clubs that I think will automatically qualify to the round of 16, that top 8. At 8th place, I'm going to be picking Atletico Madrid. This squad has made some serious transfers, especially in the striker department, getting Alvarez from Man City, along with Sorloth from Villarreal. Hopefully, the Argentinian doesn't get benched by another Norwegian. Conor Gallagher and Lenormand are great additions as well. This squad has depth and experience in a doable draw with the manager they fully trust. I think they have what it takes to at least thrive in this league phase. Above them by a stint, I'm putting Liverpool. Some are skeptical as Klopp has now left and been replaced by Slot. And they did make some great signings, but in positions that you can argue they didn't really need. They improved their attacking depth by signing Chiesa, who's fantastic, and they signed Mamardashvili, who they won't even use this year. But they have had a strong start to the Premier League at the time of this recording, and like I already mentioned, their attacking depth is wonderful. Something they'll need, rotating options, in order to succeed in both Champions League and the Premier League, with loads of fixtures heading their way. The one problem is in their draw, they'll be facing their kryptonite Real Madrid. Time and time again, this club gets the best of Liverpool. I think they'll lose that matchup, but then win the majority of their other fixtures. It's not an easy draw, but one where they have what it takes to show their quality without a doubt. Now, I myself am surprised I'm putting this next club so high on the list. But apart from having some poor business decisions, Barcelona's spirit seems to be high. Appointing Hansi Flick has been a bright start, along with Dani Olmo. Barcelona, apart from coming up against Bayern Munich, have a great draw in their hands. I don't want to say Bayern is their ultimate kryptonite, as we have seen memorable moments going their way, but most of the time they struggle against them heavily. Will the former Bayern boss be able to stop this routinely UCL historical event? The match will be played in Barcelona, so they have what it takes, but it's not going to be easy, as we all know. I think they should be able to get 19 points minimum, and on the top of my head, I think that should be enough to qualify for the top 8, which will obviously get a knockout spot automatically. I have a feeling that they'll draw with Dortmund though and get similar outcomes to them as well, meaning they might share points, so I'll have Dortmund just above them. Dortmund's draw is also favorable. Besides having to come up against both La Liga giants, these are opponents they should be beating. They've lost Fulkrug, who was on fire last year, but now they have Guirassy, who was scoring goals for fun last season, and Bader from Hoffenheim. Getting one of Brighton's best player, Gross, is a good pickup as well, and the Champions League finalists last season also just appointed a new manager, their former player Shaheen. As long as Dortmund can beat the pot 2, 3, and 4 teams in their draw, I think they have what it takes to get top 8. Now, a club that's finally making their return to UCL football after having many disappointing years is Juventus. Their rebuild under Thiago Motta had him make some interesting decisions, like saying Chiesa would not be part of the plan. But it's hard to question him too much, as he just thrived with Bologna last season, and he's already gotten 2 3-0 scorelines going his way. Juventus looks to have an exciting competitive year ahead, and by the looks of it from their draw, their only massive obstacle will be Manchester City. At third, I'll take Bayern. Now, a lot are skeptical with this club as they fell short to 3rd place in the Bundesliga last season, to then appointing company who got relegated from the Premier League with Burnley. I'm not sure how far the club will go in the later stages of the competition, but they still seem to hold a solid identity to at least do well in the first round of Champions League football. Of course, this is a different format now, and if Flick doesn't mastermind his way to getting a victory against his former club, they'll probably beat Barcelona. But other than that, they have the quality and legacy to get 3 points in the other fixtures, I reckon. Harry Kane can get some kind of award for top goal scorer in the league phase maybe, but will he actually win a trophy at the end of the season? At second place, I will take the Champions League winners from last season, Real Madrid. I still think they have what it takes to go undefeated, but maybe a draw or two will halt them from getting that first place spot. It wouldn't matter obviously, and I still think this club is one of the favorites to win the entire competition. I mean, they literally have the best legacy out of any other club. Along with getting new incredible signings, the biggest talking point being Mbappe. However, Kroos's departure has been quite noticeable. The team is not clicking well at the moment. They've already gotten 2 draws in La Liga, but I think this side just need a bit more time to click once again. That means at first place, I'm giving it to Manchester City. On paper and the tactics they possess under one of the best managers in the world, they won't let many clubs phase them. As long as their key players are fit, I see them maybe just slipping once at one point. But other than that, 3 points in each fixture. It would obviously be massive for any other club to get 3 points against them though. I'm not saying I think this club will win the Champions League at the end, but I think they have what it takes to get first place in the league phase. They've won the Premier League 4 times in a row now, and in recent times have always had solid runs in this competition. But yeah, that's my complete Champions League prediction list for this league phase. Of course, this round is much more complicated to evaluate compared to before, since each side has their own set of fixtures. I'm not expecting this prediction video to age well whatsoever, and I don't want to fully hate on this new format yet. My only complaint for now is I cannot memorize each club's fixtures. But let's see how it pans out before we continue to critique it. Anyway guys, like I said, let me know your predictions in the comments below. Thank you all for making it to the end. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all very, very soon. Take care. Boa noite.